Cześć. No, pięknie. Witamy na kolejnym JUGtoberFestie, to już jest czwarty JUGtoberFest. Zaczynamy nim, nie wiem, to jest pierwszy raz, to jest pierwszy raz na tym spotkaniu. No, to całkiem nieźle. A kto był na wszystkich? No ja. No dobrze, to fajnie. Fajnie, że nowe twarze. To może ze słowem wprowadzenia. My zawsze tym spotkaniem zaczynamy taki sezon jugowy, ponieważ wakacje robimy sobie przerwę, ludzie wyjeżdżają, jest jakaś taka mniejsza frekwencja na spotkaniach. I tym JUGtoberem otwieramy taki sezon. Już mamy zaplanowane spotkania kolejne, jeszcze chyba w listopadzie na pewno 3 będą, na godzinie też coś chyba tam jest. Zresztą za chwilę pokażę. Słowa, raczej rzeczy ważne, to takie, że piwo będzie od godziny 19 dostępne w tamtej części. Coś będzie można zjeść od 19:30 oraz tam jest też stoisko naszego sponsora JUGto, o tym za moment, w którym można sobie pogadać i mają też fajne gadżety. I teraz tak, co do tego, co się dzisiaj będzie działo, to pewnie wszyscy widzieli rozpiskę, mamy małą zmianę, mianowicie w pierwszej kolejności wystąpi Zef, ponieważ później ma jakieś spotkanie i przesuwamy Adama Tymka zaraz za przerwę jedzeniową i zamykać będzie Adam Dubiel. Jest taka zmiana, więc jak ktoś chciał przyjść, nie wiem, tylko na Zefa, to ma problem. I tyle z tego. Piwa powinno starczyć dla wszystkich, więc spokojnie. Teraz tak, co do właśnie tych spotkań jugowych, o których wcześniej mówiłem, to mamy wolny termin na 24 października. Jeśli ktoś by chciał, to zapraszam do naszego GitHuba, zgłosić pull requesta, albo można też maila wysłać, napisać na grupę, dorwać kogoś, dowolnie. Oraz mamy wolny termin 12 grudnia. W listopadzie będą takie 3 spotkania, trochę niespodzianki. I później ogłosimy terminy na nowy rok. Jakby co, jesteśmy też otwarci na jakieś nowe propozycje. W tym roku też wypaliło fajnie te flaszki, takie 15-minutowe wystąpienia. Możemy powtórzyć te formy, by było więcej chętnych. Dalej. Jest jeszcze sprawa, którą chcieliśmy sobie tutaj obgadać z Wami. Mianowicie po spotkaniu całym, po wszystkich prezentacjach zapraszamy na takie małą burzę mózgów, żeby obgadać, co dalej z Jugiem. Nie planujemy go zamykać, ani nic z tych rzeczy, spokojnie, będziemy dalej działać, tylko potrzebne trochę świeżej krwi i też trochę przegadania, czy ta forma działa. Jeśli działa, to super, jeśli nie działa, to co możemy zmienić. Ogólnie zachęcamy, żeby się przyłączyć, jeśli nie wypijecie wszystkiego piwa i będziecie nadal w stanie rozmawiać. I teraz tak, Edyta, która lubi wystąpienia. Jeszcze może ze strony Juga. Kolejny raz chciałem bardzo podziękować JUGT, Edycie oraz całej ekipie, która z nami współpracuje, ponieważ te spotkania, te eventy naprawdę super się organizuje. Nie ma nigdy żadnych problemów. Zachęcamy do kontaktu i mam nadzieję, że będziemy tak co rok ciągle. Oraz więcej ciekawych eventów będziemy robić razem.
Też mam taką nadzieję i też dziękuję i też się cieszę, że widzę pełną salę, co daje i siłę, i energię, i motywację na kolejne edycje. Żeby nie przedłużać, ja się nazywam Edyta, jest jeszcze Agata z JUGT i Paulina gdzieś się z tyłu kryje, także jeżeli chcecie z nami pogadać w przerwach, zapraszamy. I zapraszamy na kolejny udany event. Dzięki.
Koniec tych slajdów, miłej zabawy. I oddaję głos Zefowi.
Okay. To start my story, I want to take you back 5.5 years. Whoa. Okay. 5.5 years. February 5th, 2015. Okay, I'm going to push a button. I think it's going to be more reliable. 2 a.m. Unfortunately. You remember where you were? 2012, 2 a.m. I do. It was 2 a.m. I was in bed. Unfortunately, I got a phone call Basically, the message was very clear. All systems are down again, because this was the third time that week. So I had to get up, and like as this happens in I'm sure your daily life, you open your laptop, connect, and start to fix stuff. Okay. So a little bit of context. 5 years ago, I was working at a company called Cloud9 IDE. And basically the product, which was a startup, based mostly in Amsterdam, I was working remotely from here. And the product we were building is kind of like, it still is actually, but it's now been acquired by Amazon. It's an online IDE in the browser. So rather than installing IntelliJ or Eclipse or whatever, you go to a URL and it gives you a whole IDE, you can debug, you can save your code, this kind of stuff. That's the product we were building. As you can probably imagine, it's kind of important that this works. Because if during the day the system goes down and you cannot do your work anymore, people will start to complain. And 2 AM is more like midday in the US, Mountain View, like the West Coast where most of our users were, so this was kind of a problem. So very early on, before I joined, the decision was made to kind of build this whole product on a technology called Node.js. You heard of Node.js? Probably yes. Ooh, Node, JavaScript. Except Node.js back in that time didn't really look like this. It looked more like this. Actually, there was a logo before it, but I couldn't find it. Like, it seemed to be scraped off the internet. And this is Node.js in 2012. And this is Node.js 0.4. Now, version numbers don't mean anything, but I think 0.4 was a very appropriate version number. So, what was the problem that night? We were using a Node module called Cluster. And what does Cluster do? Well, as you probably know, JavaScript environments generally have like single-threaded, right? In the browser, you have one event loop, and there's only, like, if you are handling like a couple of thousand requests per second, like we do, you cannot handle that in one process. So you have to kind of like start to distribute it across different workers. And Cluster actually allows you to do that quite easily. So basically, you instantiate this, and it will start to evenly spread the load between multiple processes, and each of them is then handling parts of it. At least this was the assumption. In practice, this is what we saw. Like 94% of the traffic was actually sent to one of the processes, and the rest was basically just eating. This is a Dutch expression, eating out of its nose. So luckily, we employed half of the Node.js core development team at the time, because this is, if you want to adopt technology like this early, basically you have to just hire everybody that knows how this works. Later we even hired a third one, so basically all of them were working for us. And what the issue turned out to be is it was very, very specific. So it was, we were running Node 4, 0.4 actually, on Joyent. Joyent is also the kind of sponsor of Node, so that seems like an obvious choice for us. On SmartOS, and SmartOS is kind of like a fork of Solaris. And Solaris is very, very old, like it's very mature. But the combination of all these things together didn't work so well. So luckily we had those guys working for us, and they prepared a custom Node.js 0.4 build, and basically that fixed the issue. I mean, it was 6 AM by this time, right, as you can imagine, but the problem was solved. So you may be saying, okay, that's nice, so what do I do with that, right? So basically what I wanted to talk about a little bit is startups. So who of you works at a startup? Not many, okay. So this may or may not be that relevant to you. But, so this is my perspective on like why startups exist versus like all the large corporations that also exist, right? So first of all, a startup, if you want to start a startup, you have to have some idea, like a product you want to build. But the challenges really start in like finding what it's called product market fit. And you have to kind of show that the idea that you have actually has merit. Like people are interested in that, they want to buy it, or at least they want to use it. Like pay for it is another story, I guess. So this is challenge number one. The second reason that they exist is that they are generally smaller and people work very hard, so we can move very, very fast. So that's cool. Of course, the third reason that they exist is that you can try out whatever technology you want, right? You can use Elixir, you can build stuff on React, Cycle, Go, AWS, Lambda, Rust, like who's going to stop you? You can use whatever you want. And if you only take one thing away from my talk today is that actually you probably don't want to do that. Because 90% of startups, this is a random statistics I just came up with, fail. And finding this product market fit is hard enough, right? Moving fast is hard enough. You really, really, really don't need more challenges than that. You have to pick your battles very, very carefully. So again, back to Cloud9. So this is what our technology stack looked like. On the front end, so this is kind of historically interesting because before this company turned into a company called Cloud9, there was a company called Ajax.org, and basically back in, like, I don't know, the early 2010s or whatever, when Ajax was kind of new, they built a whole framework from scratch because there was nothing really. So we built our whole front end on a very custom framework on the front end. On the back end, we were using Node.js, SmartOS, and Redis because, you know, cool. And then we ran into quite some issues which were kind of new back in the time because not that many people were doing this. For instance, how do you organize 200,000 lines of JavaScript code? How do you handle API breakage between different Node versions? We were at Node 0.4 at that time. Actually, the most current version was 0.6, but because there's so many API changes, we kind of stuck to 0.4, and migration was very expensive. And we had, like, basically the migrations were very expensive to do. So we stuck to old versions. How do you do, like, basic things, like how do you do a release without downtime? And other nice things, like if you have an exception in Node.js, the process crashes. Like in Java, your thread crashes, in Node, your process crashes, which takes down all the other 1,000 users that are connected to it. Other interesting things we encountered both in Node and in Redis, because they share the same model of being single-threaded, or single-threaded, is that if you do something expensive, like you do expensive computation or something that takes a long time, the world stops. Like it does only do one thing at a time. So if you have 1,000 requests being handled by one node process, and one of those one of the requests kind of blocks, like there's a computation that takes a second, the rest just doesn't move at all, like nothing happens, right? This is very different than if you were threading. In Redis it's actually very similar, because if you do a key scan, the whole database also freezes up. And you have to be aware of that. Basically, there was a lot of partying going on in those years. This is more or less what I wanted to say. We fixed all these issues, right? We could resolve all those issues eventually. The question is really, like, do you really want to do that if you also have all this other stuff to worry about? You should really avoid distractions and pick your battles carefully. Okay, so anything that can go wrong will go wrong. This is a well-known quote by some dude called Murphy. At some point I checked who this was, I don't remember. It was a cat? That's why, okay, interesting. Really, it was a cat? Okay. All right. In that case, it doesn't make sense, but okay, like a cat also doesn't operate at scale, right? Murphy never operated at scale, because this is my version of this law, Zef's law, still in use today. Anything that can go wrong will immediately blow up in your face. If you have thousands of requests a second, and there's a chance that something may go wrong, it will go wrong, and it will go wrong very, very quickly. So you have to prepare for that. And when things do go wrong, I don't know if you have something similar in your companies, basically what we tend to do is like you have a 5 whys. This is an idea that comes from Toyota, I think, where they basically do root cause analysis, right, and when an outage happens. So how does it work? Well, for instance, our server crashed, and then you ask, why did it crash? Okay. Well, we didn't handle all error cases because I told you, like if you throw an exception, the whole thing blows up. So why did we not handle all those error cases? Well, we only have tests for the happy paths. We don't have tests for every possible path. Why do we only have happy path tests? Well, we didn't have time to write more tests, and so on, right? And why didn't we have time to write more tests, and so on? The idea is that basically in a step or 5, you get to the root cause of the problem, and that's the one you address, and then you can address the levels above that as well. That's 5 whys. I have, for root cause analysis, I have something else, which I call 5 reallys. So this is how it works. We should use Node.js because it's cool, fast, and scalable. And so you ask, really? Yes. Really? Yeah, yes. Really? Well, you know, I think so. I think we need that. Really? Well, okay. So maybe speed is not that important, but you know, scale is, right? Really? Well, no. Actually, realistically, we can only hope for about 200 users. So how does that work? If you want to try it at home or at work, people, I gave this talk about a year ago at Ignite, people still do this, it's very annoying actually. You ask a really as many times as required effectively until the person in question understands that he or she is wrong. And usually that happens within 5 reallys, or they kick you out of the room, which also tends to happen quite a lot. But you know, like kidding aside, the point here is to like think about what you're doing rather than just say, you know, what I read at Hacker News today, we should use that. And that happens a lot, right? So this is, I guess, the part that you've really been waiting for. You had a tough day at work, like I did. And you think, hopefully, when I go to this JUGtoberFest tonight, there will be some random dude on stage that's going to give me advice. And you're lucky, because here it comes. Here's my advice. Build amazing applications, build startups, build whatever the hell you want, and use the most boring technology you can find. Use things like, and I don't know how to pronounce this, you know, like stuff that's years old. Use things like, it's like Java, I don't know how to pronounce it, in Spanish I think. Or use PHP, or use Python. Use, if you are into that, use Microsoft.NET. Because when you use a technology like that, you can Google any problem you have, and you can find a solution, right? And you can laugh at this. Well, okay, you can laugh at this because it's funny. But you have no idea like how much time it saves to be able to Google any question you have and find the answer on Stack Overflow. Don't underestimate the value of mature technology, basically. Pick your battles. And you may think, okay, that's cool, but what's the point of new technology? Like, we may as well freeze the technology world and say that we're done, this is it. Java 8 or 9, what we're at now, almost 9 I think, done. Is that really what we want to do? 555, no, really no, yes, 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 no. Because, of course, there's another slightly different angle, and this kind of depends on what you want to do and the kind of product that you build. But sometimes, you know, you need bleeding edge technology to do these things. You cannot build any product using Java. You can probably, but you probably shouldn't. There's a lot of stuff out there that makes sense to very specific cases. And then this is what gives you the edge. This is what will allow you to actually reach your market and be successful. But don't optimize prematurely. For instance, like, so this is my favorite slide of like startups. Is everybody aware of like these products? Dynamo, DB, CoreOS, microservices, everybody's heard of course. So like one thing from my perspective that all these things share in common in 99 times of the cases is like you don't need any of those. Of course, there are scenarios where you want to store petabytes of data and query it very quickly. You probably don't want to use your SQLite database of MySQL. You probably want to do something like DynamoDB. Maybe you have to scale up your service from day one to 500,000 servers. Then of course Core-based is a very reasonable choice. And similarly, maybe you have to scale up your team to like 6,000 people, and then microservices make a lot of sense because it's easy to have like ownership of each service with different teams. Realistically, probably you don't, right? Don't use this stuff. Unless you have to, or unless you have a hobby project. So, yeah, you cannot predict the future, so don't even bother. Be pragmatic. I think I keep summarizing it all the time. So anyway, too long didn't listen. Don't take your tech choices too lightly. Don't use whatever happens on Reddit or Hacker News or... I'm not saying don't use it, like play with it, but don't bet your business on it, like we did. And kind of sort of quasi-survived, long story, don't have time to tell it. But yeah, pick your battles, be reasonable, think. That's it. Thank you. Do we have time for questions? Any questions? Okay, thank you.